Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Kunkel. I am a missionary in Japan and a seminary student at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and I am developing this project for my seminary course, Southern Baptist Heritage and Mission, and the story of a history of Baptist missionaries and their supporters, missionaries from within the United States and overseas, based in the Baptist missions from America to overseas, as this will be a project that I'll be writing for in this lecture. So I hope you enjoy, and let's dig in together. So first, we're going to explain how the origins of interest in missions from America to the world actually began. As we look in Baptist missionary beginnings, we start by looking at the Philadelphia Baptist Association in 1707. Established in 1707, the Philadelphia Baptist Association became the first association of Baptist churches in America. The association took a particular interest in giving aid to impoverished areas of the South, to preach the gospel, counsel feeble churches, and instruct the scattered disciples of Christ, which is important to understand because in 1696, a man by the name of Roger Williams established the First Baptist Church in North America, which is located in Providence, Rhode Island. And the purpose was to not only unify Baptists, but also as the Baptists were facing persecution in England and in America, where the Church of England was persecuting them, the Baptists wanted to establish an association that was located in Philadelphia. And when that happened throughout the 13 colonies of New England, so many people were interested in cooperating together for the glory of Christ to preach the gospel, counsel feeble churches, and instruct the scattered disciples of Christ. And that would be for decades until there would be one particular missionary who would be considered to be the first Baptist missionary. And many people would address this to either William Carey or Adoniram Judson, but the man himself was officially the first Baptist missionary that was ever sent to become a missionary to overseas. And the man's name is George Liele. Liele was an African American emancipated slave who became the founding pastor of First Bryan Baptist Church and First African Baptist Church in Savannah, Georgia. He was known to become the first American missionary by leaving in 1782 for Jamaica, 1 decade before William Carey set sail for India in 1793, and 30 years before Adoniram Judson was ordained in 1812. He fled to Jamaica to escape from being recaptured by white owners, but his escape brought him to become a missionary. By 1814, Liele's ministry produced 8,000 Baptists and numerous chapels, which inspired future Baptist missionaries, including Lot Carey and David George, to fulfill the Great Commission. And we'll see in the next century how it all worked and happened. Baptist missionary beginnings, the Triennial Convention. When the Judsons and Luther Rice became Baptists, Luther and other Baptists helped form the Triennial Convention on May 1821 in the year of 1814, which the convention took place every 3 years. Richard Furman served as the president, and the convention later helped form the American Baptist Home Mission Society. The Triennial Convention was used to support Baptist missionary work for future missionaries to fulfill the Great Commission, in which the Southern Baptist Convention was born. One of those missionaries who was part of the Triennial Convention, or at least to be supported, was by the name of Ann Judson. Anne, or Nancy Judson, the wife of Adoniram Judson, was one of the first American Baptist female foreign missionaries to serve in Burma since 1812. She was the first Protestant missionary to translate the scriptures into Thai, when she translated the Gospel of Matthew in 1819. Her work and writings made the role of missionary life as a calling legitimate for 19th century and generations to come. Then we have another missionary who is actually a missionary supporter, but we call him a missionary because his desire was also to fulfill the Great Commission, but yet in a different role. That man's name is Luther Rice. Rice was a man who sailed with the Judsons to Calcutta, India in 1812 as a Congregationalist missionary, and there he met William Carey. Rice returned to America to break ties with the Congregationalists and raise support for the Judsons and the Baptists. Rice worked to unite the American Baptists to support foreign missionaries and organized a triennial convention in 1814. The convention advocated the formation of a unified Baptist missionary sending body that helped form the Southern Baptist Convention in 1845. So let's move on to what happened in the next few centuries, which would be the Southern Baptist Convention. As a breaking point for Baptists in the South came through the correspondence with the Triennial Convention, the Baptists were neutral on slavery until Baptists in Georgia and Alabama forced to take a side in the debate. When James Reeve was nominated to become a missionary through the American Baptist Home Mission Society, Reeve was rejected because he was a slave owner. As a result, the Southern Baptist Convention with its two mission boards were formed on May 8, 1845, as 293 delegates assembled with William B. Johnson as president. Fears that a North and South split would hinder mission work among Baptists were unrealized, but the Southern Baptist Convention became the largest Baptist denomination in America in the next century. So let's look at 4 people in that century who made that dream a reality. Some were positive and others were negative. William B. Johnson. Johnson was one of the founders of the South Carolina State Baptist Convention in 1841 and became the first president of the Southern Baptist Convention from 1845 to 1851. His presidency became a massive victory for the South since he was the president of the Triennial Convention from 1841 to 1844. Johnson's experience in drafting constitutions for the Triennial Convention prepared him to propose the Constitution for a convention with a plan that combined foreign and home missions. He believed Southerners were forbidden to fulfill the Great Commission rather than the issue of slavery. And we'll look on that with one very famous, well-known missionary that a lot of Southern Baptists and non-Southern Baptists would know. Her name is Lottie Moon. Moon was a significant female missionary who gave her life to serve the Lord in a foreign country, which made her one of the most impactful missionaries in Christian history. During her work, she called the Foreign Mission Board to support from Southern Baptist churches to aid them, which in 1888, the Lottie Moon Christmas offering had begun. Moon demonstrated her dedication by her willingness to adopt Chinese customs as she served in Tengcha and Pingtu, China, for nearly 4 decades until her death on Christmas Eve in 1912. Moon became an impactful servant of the Lord until to this very day, and her legacy lives on as more and more missionaries see her faithfulness as a testimony example for people like me to continue serving the Lord overseas where the gospel, including in Japan, is needed. There was one man who wanted to go to Japan, and he also was engaged with Lottie, but he would be one of the most controversial figures in Baptist history, as many of those who work at Southern or study at Southern would know. And this is a man that we would know as Crawford Toy. Toy was an American Hebrew scholar and was one of the first Southern Baptist missionaries to be appointed to Japan, although in which he was unable to serve in Japan. From 1869 to 1879, he was a Hebrew professor at Southern Seminary. While at Southern, he became embroiled in one of the earliest controversies in Baptist history. Influenced by European higher criticism of the Bible, Toy began intellectual pursuits that would ultimately cost him his tenure at Southern viewing Darwin's theories as God's truth. Due to the controversy, Toy submitted his resignation from Southern in 1879 and broke his affiliation with Southern Baptists. The sad story is that Dr. Toy was unable to acknowledge his errors, but he also was unable to acknowledge the Bible as inerrant, which was not only why he broke affiliation with the Southern Baptist Convention, but he also refused to acknowledge his mistakes, that as he went to Harvard, he even broke his engagement with Lottie Moon and became a Unitarian. Despite the bad news, there was also great news throughout that century by a lady whose name was Annie Armstrong, a close friend of Lottie Moon and, like Rice, a supporter of missions. Armstrong was a female Baptist leader who was one of the most well-known public figures in the Women's Missionary Union. Armstrong worked with various Baltimore missionary organizations, ministering to orphans, African Americans, Native Americans, Chinese American immigrants, and disadvantaged women and families. Armstrong helped curb women's interest in the gospel mission movement for local churches to withdraw support from denominational entities and support their missionaries. Armstrong and Lottie Moon were instrumental in raising awareness of the finances for the Baptist missionary work for the Great Commission. And as you will see, these four people were influential from the Southern Baptist Convention, and as we look into the next century, you'll see where it all led to. So, as we get ready, we'll see where the next steps hold. The modern Southern Baptist history, the modern area of the Baptist Faith and Message, and the Cooperative Program. When Southern Baptists planned to propose to raise the $75 million campaign, they were surprised that the campaign got the result that the churches pledged up to $92 million. However, when the Great Depression came, only $52 million was given. Therefore, by 1925, the decisions were made for Southern Baptists to form the Cooperative Program as an annual campaign for churches to provide to state conventions to support Southern Baptist entities. On the same year, the Southern Baptist Convention under E.Y. Mullins published the Baptist Faith and Message as their statement of faith to identify their beliefs as a guide in the fundamental doctrines of Christianity. And in the next page, you'll see two people who not only signed the Baptist Faith and Message, but also were impactful of fulfilling the Great Commission, one in his home country and the other in the foreign country. One who served in the foreign country, his name was Bill Wallace. Bill Wallace was a brilliant college graduate from Knoxville, Tennessee, who had a passion for pursuing a career and becoming a surgeon. However, when he received a call to become a missionary surgeon in China, he accepted and went for missions in China. When the Foreign Mission Board sent him to China, Wallace served in the hospital located in the Cantonese region in China during an era of World War II, which the Japanese invaded China. He saved multitudes of lives from their diseases and was one of the few missionaries who chose to remain in China, where he was murdered for his faith in February of 1951. Wallace's influence inspired Christians in preaching and healing unbelievers for Christ's glory. And one of those people who really needs no introduction, but he became one of the most well-known influencers of Christian history and Southern Baptist history. And that minister also was able to form a lot of Christian influences and inspirations. As you'll see the next person, he needs no introduction because many of you may know who he is. So, prepare for Billy Graham. Billy Graham was known as the most influential evangelist in the 20th century. After his graduation from Wheaton College, Graham was ordained by the Southern Baptist Convention, and his work as an evangelist began with Youth for Christ in 1945. His major evangelistic campaign began in Los Angeles and he later founded his ministry, the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, in 1950. Those events were the beginning of what was to become the most massive international evangelistic campaign in church history. Graham preached in stadium events to hundreds of thousands at a time for advancing the gospel of Christ. And with that said, all those great men and women who served the Lord faithfully, they served the gospel, and with that said, and looking at their lives, I can gratefully say that God used them abundantly. But just because there was great service does not end with controversy either. That throughout the 1970s, or actually 1960s, throughout the 2000s, the Baptist Faith and Message 1963 was made due to a controversy similar to Crawford Toy, and for that reason, that kind of message had to be revised, not twice, but thrice, 3 times. So as we look in the page, we'll see where it led. Present Southern Baptist history, the formation of the Baptist Faith and Message 2000. In 1998, many years after the conservative resurgence, Baptist leaders in Atlanta, Georgia, needed to reestablish the theological teachings from theological liberalism through a revised version of the Baptist Faith and Message. Adrian Rogers, Albert Mohler, and other leaders formed the Baptist Faith and Message 2000. The new version of the Baptist Faith and Message helped change an opinion between theological conservatives and moderates about the doctrine of biblical inerrancy. And one of them was the well-known Albert Mohler Jr. Mohler was born on October 19, 1959 in Lakeland, Florida. At a young age, Mohler experienced a call for Christian ministry and got ordained in 1982. After meeting with the trustees for candid discussions about Southern Seminary's future, Mohler was chosen to serve as the seminary's 9th president after Roy Honeycutt's resignation in 1993. During Mohler's tenure, Southern's face has dramatically changed as Southern draws roughly 4,000 students to study in a variety of programs as the seminary has grown. Mohler was listed as one of the most influential Christians of the 21st century, and he was engaged in multiple interviews in news media, and he even runs a daily program called The Briefing. So with all those figures who were missionaries and supporters of missionaries, you would see how God is at work since the beginning and from the Baptist churches in America. God used those people to bring his kingdom to be glorified. And some of those people who were used for bad, God turned them to good, like Crawford Toy, Ralph Elliott, and some others who challenged the Southern Baptists to rely their faith on the Lord. And with that said, these leaders and the people who came to know and love the support of missions will continue to grow until Jesus Christ returns. And the wonderful thing about the Southern Baptist love for missions is that mission love did not come from them, but came from God to all Christians. And the Southern Baptist Convention, since the beginning, answered that call from the Lord to fulfill the Great Commission. Because Baptist history is God's story. In other words, history is his story, the story of Christ to save his people. God bless you, to God be the glory, and thank you very much for joining me in this adventure. To God be the glory, and blessings from above.